everyone, welcome. It's good to see you. My name is Olivia Bryant and this is Cervix. And I'm here with the lovely Denell Nawrocki, and she is an integrative wellness coach and health educator. And her specialty is cervical dysplasia, healing it, and HPV. And so as we know, is another component of our work after we've been doing our healing, or maybe we've already dealt with this in our journeys and perhaps we've ended up going to the doctors and having invasive medical procedures. So is there another way? What else can we do? So here's Danelle. Hi, Danelle. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi. I'm just so excited to be here.
Hey, I'm so excited to introduce you because, you know, this is another component of what we're doing, and it's so good to have someone in the world helping people do something else other than going to the traditional medical world. So I thought that before we start, we could get into a little bit of your story so that people connect with you. So please tell us something about you and like your story with the cervix and how you got into the cervix.
I will do my best to keep the story short, but essentially I was diagnosed with HPV and cervical dysplasia at the age of 19, and I didn't know what that meant. I didn't even know what a cervix was, and I just knew I had to go and get a pap smear, but I didn't know why. And so when I got these abnormal results back, the doctors told me, oh, you're young, you're only 19, you have nothing to worry about. And they just sent me out the door. And literally that just kind of went in one ear and out the other. And I didn't think about it again. So I continued to live my life how I was living it, which was as a wild and crazy party girl in college and having lots of sexual partners, and again, not really knowing or understanding what HPV was or is and what cervical dysplasia is. So over the next 4 years, I had continued abnormal pap results. And over the course of the 4 years, my doctors progressively started to get more and more concerned. They started saying like, well, you know, you should heal. You should have healed by now. I don't know what's wrong with you. Literally, those were words they said. They gave me the treatment options of getting the LEAP procedure or getting the HPV vaccine, but I really didn't feel good about those options. I didn't, even though I didn't know what the cervix was at the time, just the idea of having portions of my body cut away because something was wrong just really didn't settle with me. And it didn't make sense to me to think about getting a vaccine for something I already had. So over those 4 years, I continued to say no, like I don't want these treatments, no. I asked my doctors, like, what can I do to help myself? And the one thing that they told me was like, oh, you can take a folic acid supplement. And so I did that. I was like, okay, well, this is, I guess, what I can do. But it didn't help. And so at this 4-year mark, you know, I had at this time 6 colposcopies, which are biopsies of the cervix, going in for PAPs every 6 months. And because I was refusing the treatment options, my doctor essentially got fed up with me and sent me away to like another OBGYN in like the major hospital here in the county that I live in. And so I went in for another colposcopy. This was the 7th one I had, and another PAP with a doctor that I didn't know. And I was sitting in, it was like a teaching hospital. So the gynecological exam room was like this huge auditorium, and like the exam table was in the middle of the auditorium, and it was just me and the doctor, and there was like all this space around, and it was cold, and I was terrified. And the doctor literally put her hand on my leg, looked at me in the eyes and said, you refuse the LEAP, you refuse the HPV vaccine. I'm sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. And in that moment, my heart sank. And I was like, wow, okay, I guess I'm going to get cervical cancer, because these people who I had put so much trust in just told me point blank that they couldn't help me. And so I went home and I was crying on the shower floor because I was just so distraught. I'm like, what is wrong with me? I'm was supposed to heal. I'm supposed to be healthy. I'm young. What is wrong with my body? Why aren't I healing? And in this moment of complete despair, it was like a little like light came in and floated into my heart. And I had this moment of, I'm going to figure this out. If my doctors, if Western medicine say they can't help me without cutting away portions of my body or burning away portions of my body or freezing away portions of my body, then I'm going to figure out what the heck is going on here. And so I put a stake in the ground and like internally, and over the next 3 years, I took myself on a healing journey where I just dove deep into the information and literature I could find about the cervix and about cervical dysplasia and about HPV. I completely transformed my life, my lifestyle. I stopped being the wild party girl and started really devoting my time and energy to healing myself through lifestyle medicine. I took myself back to school and got my master's in integrative health because I just really wanted to learn, how does the body heal itself? What are the regenerative mechanisms of this miracle that we are living in? And so, over the course of these 3 years, I was still going in for PAPs. I still had like a couple more colposcopies, and actually my cervical dysplasia went up a level from SIN 1 to SIN 2. But I was determined to not give up. I was like, you know what, like, this has to work because I am not having these procedures done. And lo and behold, it was in February of 2015. I get a call from my doctor on a Saturday, which was very strange. And I answered the phone and she said, Danelle, I have something very important I need to tell you. And I was like, oh God, like what's going on? Do I have cervical cancer? Is this the end? And she said, Danelle, your test came back normal. Your HPV is gone. The cervical dysplasia is gone. And I remember her saying, like, how did you do it? And in that moment, I burst out laughing like a hysterical witch's cackle, because in that moment, I realized I had done it. That it took 3 years of concerted research and like self-inquiry and spiritual healing, but I had done it. And then that elation went to anger. And I realized, oh my gosh, how many millions of women go through what I went through, but instead of making that choice to figure it out on their own, they feel scared and terrified with the big C word, cancer, and then they say yes to these treatment options which aren't very effective. And so this is where the root of my work stems from, is this realization that there is a lack of information given to women about the cervix, about what a pap smear is, about what HPV is, and what does it mean when it comes back abnormal. And the realization that sex education, especially here in the United States, is really not up to par. And so I am here as a voice for the self-healing of our cervix, to tell women that yes, you can do it. No, you don't have to listen to your doctors, and inviting women to take back their power in their gynecological health. So that's my story.
Wow. Oh, now You're so brave. Like, I just want to acknowledge you because
Oh,
it's not easy
no.
to, like, the doctors have the authority. And when they dangle that word in front of you, I mean, you know, when this happened for me, I guess I wasn't really on the path of, I didn't have all this information that I do have now. So I didn't
Right.
realize that there was more options. They basically
Right.
just said, you have SEN3, you need to get your cervix lasered now. So I was like, okay. And since I've read that just because you have a SEN doesn't even mean it's going to progress to cancer.
No, no. Actually, I just read a statistic the other week saying that women with SIN3 cervical dysplasia, it can take anywhere from 5 to 25 years for it to progress into cancer. And when I read that statistic, I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
25 years?
I think, isn't there even a stage before that, like carcinoma in situ? Like there's a whole nother stage before the cancer? Like,
Yes,
I mean,
yes.
that's mind blowing to me. I feel so sad that I did that and pissed off because I was left with a numb cervix.
I'm so sorry to hear that.
No, it's
And
fine now.
okay, good.
I've been feeling the trauma, but like a lot of people don't have access to any of this.
No.
So okay. So I'm a woman and I've gone to the doctor and they've told me that I have cervical dysplasia. Could you maybe tell us what that is?
Yes.
How that's different from HPV?
Yes, okay. So I'll start with HPV. So HPV is the human papilloma virus. I don't know the statistics worldwide because I know you're in Australia, but here in the United States, it's estimated that 79 million to about 90 million people have HPV. There are 140 different strains of HPV, yet there's only 5 of them that can cause cancer. And the HPV vaccine actually only covers 2 of those 5 strains. HPV can be transferred by way of the throat, by way of the vaginal canal, the penis, or even like around the base of the penis, the vulva, and even the anal canal. And so most often how women contract HPV is actually by having unprotected sex with men who do not know they are carriers. Because unless a man has a strain that manifests as genital warts, they won't know that they have it. And I'm pretty sure, I'm like 90% sure there aren't any tests that a man can take to see if he has HPV. So with the advent of the birth control pill, this has given women the availability to have unprotected sex, and this then leads them to contract HPV because, one, the hormonal birth control lowers your immune system, or it diminishes your immune system's ability to function properly. So you're just kind of left wide open to contract HPV. So HPV or HPV causes cervical dysplasia, and cervical dysplasia is just a really fancy word that means abnormal cells on the cervix. And I wish I had like a drawing or a diagram to show you, but I'll do my best to explain the anatomy and physiology of the cervix with words. So the cervix is like this beautiful little mound at the end of the vaginal canal. I'm sure your followers know this. But the way the cervix regenerates or grows new cells is that the cervical os, which is the central canal or hole in the middle of the cervix, cells from the inside of the os actually flow outward and come onto the face of the cervix. So I like to think of the regeneration of the cervix as kind of like a torus. So it's just like constantly flowing outward. And the cells on the inside of the os, those are called columnar cells. They're very long, skinny cells. Yes, sorry, I just was making sure I didn't get that confused in my mind. And then as they move to the face of the cervix, those cells actually change shape, excuse me. So when they're in the middle of the cervical os, they're really long, skinny cells, but as they come to the face of the cervix, they actually shorten and they become squamous cells. And the portion of the cervix where cervical dysplasia arises is in this place called the transformation zone, or the squamo-columnar junction. And essentially what that is the place on the face of the cervix where these cells begin to transform. So when they're going from long skinny cells to short fat cells, in that in-between time, they are right around the outside of the cervical os on the face. And if you think about when like a caterpillar is transforming into a butterfly, in that in-between space, it's very delicate. And that is true for these cells on the face of the cervix. So cervical dysplasia arises, or these abnormal cells arise in this transformation zone. And what this means is that the cells aren't transforming properly. They're starting to mutate, or they're becoming abnormal. And the research doesn't really quite know why this happens, but HPV, when the cervix is exposed to this virus, it makes it so those cells start to transform in an unhealthy way. And the way I understand it to be, what I know about the body's internal resources and ability to heal itself, is that when you have contracted a virus, your body's energy, your internal resources are allocated to trying to fight off that virus. Like your immune system is working in overdrive to try to suppress the virus, because your body wants to be healthy and well, and it will do all it can to make that so. And so if all of these internal resources in your cervix are being focused on suppressing this virus that you have, then the internal resources aren't available to help those cells transform in a healthy way. So cancer is essentially just your cellular mutation. And so cervical cancer is the transformation zone, those cells in the transformation zone mutating so much that then the body starts to turn against itself. So I think that answers your question.
Yeah. Wow, that was a really great explanation. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
So at what point is it dangerous?
What HPV or cervical dysplasia?
Any of it.
Oh, well, that's a really big question, because I mean, our bodies are always fighting off virus and bacteria. It's just like that's what our immune system is for, is to really keep all these foreign invaders at bay. When it becomes dangerous is when a woman either doesn't get checked and doesn't have the awareness that this is happening to her, and then she doesn't do anything to change her lifestyle to bolster her immune system. So one thing that gynecologists don't tell you is that your cervical health is intricately linked to your immune health. So how strong is your immune system? And so the danger really arises when women or those with cervixes decide to forget about it. And the more you kind of repress it or try to like put it behind you, the more the body is going to try to tell you that something is wrong. And so one way in which I work with clients and what I tell them is that cervical dysplasia is your body telling you, hey, there's something wrong here, and we need to work together to make it better. It's your body's telling you, hey, my immune system is not very strong right now, and I can't fight off this HPV. So can you please help me out a little bit? And the cervical dysplasia will continue to progress and progress as your body is trying to be like, look at me, I'm trying to tell you a message, I'm trying to tell you that I'm unwell, so please, will you look at me, will you please pay attention to me?
That makes so much that makes so much sense to me, because when I had mine, and I know a friend going through it right now, we both went through really bad breakups. And we had a lot of emotional stress, and that would make so much sense that it would, you know, manifest this way.
Yes.
You mentioned before we started talking, I want to get to lifestyle changes in a moment, but you did also mention repressed sexual energy, which obviously is particularly interesting to me. How do you see that? How do you make that connection?
Okay, so when you and I are sitting here having a conversation, our cervix sits really low in the vaginal canal. And from the vaginal opening to where the cervix is, there's probably like 2 to 3 inches. But when a woman becomes aroused and turned on, the cervix gets the idea like, oh, something might be coming in to the vaginal canal, so I better get out of the way because I can actually feel a lot of pleasure, and I want to be in the right place so that I can experience pleasure. And so the cervix actually like moves up into the vaginal canal and creates space for whatever is going to penetrate the woman. Yet when not enough time is given, or a woman is forcibly penetrated before she is physically ready to receive something, the cervix gets hit, it gets slammed by whatever is penetrating her. And in my own personal healing journey and the clients I've worked with, I've come to really believe that, and to know that the cervix really holds all the memories of everything that has ever penetrated you, you know, good or bad. And so there's a doctor that I follow. Her name is Dr. Christine Northrup, and she has a quote that I love, and she says, problems with a woman's reproductive organs can be because of her inability to say no to penetration when she wants to, but doesn't think she should. And so, I mean, there's this common story of women just saying, you know, yes to penetration before they're ready, or, you know, being sexually assaulted or raped and having their cervix just like beaten, essentially. And our body is so intelligent and holds these memories within us, and the cervix remembers that. And so for women who say like have cervical dysplasia but perhaps aren't showing HPV, like aren't being diagnosed with HPV, that's when I begin to question about, well, do you have sexual assault in your history? What has been your sexual experiences? Have you processed your sexual experiences? Because so many of us have had adverse sexual experiences and we try to forget them. But our cervix doesn't forget them. Our body doesn't forget them. So that's how I equivocate cervical dysplasia and sexual trauma.
Oh, interesting. Well, I mean, basically that whole first part is a huge component of self-cervix. It's like really with consent and stuff. But what you said around, you know, it actually can go straight to cervical dysplasia. That could be like a teller of like things that the cervix is remembering.
Right. And I don't have any science to base that in. That's just my understanding.
You have to ask these questions, don't you?
Right.
Like, why would the cervix, which sits at the core of our reproductive anatomy, sexual anatomy, be showing abnormal, or be in pain, or be not healthy? Like, why? And, you know, I'm sure as an integrative medicine person, you know, it's all this holistic experience of living, and where does the disease show up in the body, you know? So
Right.
I completely can make that connection with you.
Mm.
So let's get on to lifestyle changes and some things that you would recommend a woman start doing right away, as well as coming to see you.
Yes. So there are several things I can recommend right away. The first being, if a woman has cervical dysplasia and she is on hormonal birth control, I recommend getting off hormonal birth control. There's actually a direct correlation between long-term hormonal birth control use and cervical cancer. And a woman who has been on hormonal birth control for 5 years is twice as likely to develop cervical cancer, and a woman who's been on it for 10 years is 3 to 4 times more likely to develop cervical cancer. So really, again, going back to internal resources, when you take exogenous hormones, or taking hormones that are not human, your body kind of is like, what's going on? Like, okay, I'm being forced through this motion, but it gets very confused, and we want to make it easeful for the body to heal and regenerate. And so I highly recommend finding other ways to family plan or contraceptive, and that can be another conversation. The next thing is, if you smoke tobacco, to also stop, because there's another direct correlation between women who smoke cigarettes and tobacco and the development of cervical cancer and cervical dysplasia. And I understand this to be because cigarettes and tobacco smoke diminish your body's ability to regenerate, so to reproduce healthy cells, and it really, really, really represses your immune system. And so again, we want to make we want to make our body's ability to heal itself easy. The next thing that I will speak to is nutrition. And so I know that there is a lot of content out there about what diets are best for you and whatnot. And there are a few things that I would like to say in regards to foods that specifically support cervical health. Excuse me. So the first are your cruciferous vegetables. So your broccolis and your cabbages and cauliflower, that these vegetables are high in folic acid or folate. And folate-folic acid are what my doctor recommended to me, but they are shown to be extremely beneficial in supporting your reproductive wellness. Foods that are high in calcium, so your whole milk, dairy, or if you don't eat dairy, your greens like collards or kale, the dark leafy greens, these are high in calcium, and these are also shown to really support your cervical health. Anything that has healthy saturated fats in it, so your healthy oils like coconut oil, avocado oil, olive oil, even like grass-fed butter if you do eat animal products, or even high quality animal meat that has fat in it, because the saturated fat from animal products has been shown to really support reproductive health as well. But if you are a vegetarian, you can get or what is recommended is eating legumes. So kidney beans, black beans, garbanzo beans. These are also shown to support cervical health. What else? You want to avoid alcohol and fried foods and sugar. And I'm not one to say like be a teetotaler or never have any of this, because that's very hard. But just anytime you put something in your body, be it food or beverage, really to have it in your awareness, like, is this supporting my body in healing itself? Or is this making it more difficult for my body to heal itself? And so, spirits and beer are pretty detrimental to your immune health and just overall body health. There are some studies that show that red wine can actually support your health. So if you want to have any sort of alcohol, red wine is a good option. Other lifestyle practices to take into consideration are bringing down your stress level. So self-care. And I know there's a lot of content out there about what self-care is and what it looks like, but I am an advocate for doing whatever makes you feel good. So if yoga and meditation brings you joy and makes you feel good, then do that. But there are a lot of people that don't like yoga and don't like meditation. And so find other things that you can do to bring down your stress. Go for a walk outside, play with your dog or your child, cook a healthy meal, with the intention of having it be beneficial for your cervical health. Read a book, go see a movie, whatever it is, do it and do it often. And I like to tell my clients that self-care isn't optional anymore, that it's actually medicine. And that if someone questions you, you can say, this is my medicine, I'm healing myself, end point. Let's see, I'm just trying to remember.
Do you recommend vaginal suppositories?
Yes, actually I do. Thank you for bringing that up. I recommend vaginal suppositories with herbs as well as douches. So douching has a really bad rap, but doing it, once a month actually puts those herbs right up in there. So just like vaginal suppositories, or you can do vaginal steams as well. Like herbs are a huge support. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Which herbs?
Anything. So for suppositories, I have a recipe that calls for lemon essential oil and lemongrass essential oil. But there have been other women that have recommended using like calendula or echinacea, but those are more tinctures. So I'm just trying to remember all the information here. Golden seal powder is amazing for douching, as well as making like a tea with calendula or pau de arco, it's called. Nettles, rose. Yeah, those are the main ones that I recommend. So really getting those herbs right up in the vaginal canal are really supportive. And actually, before I forget, I just learned about something that I have yet to try, but the testimonials are incredible, and it's called vaginal coffee insertion. And it's a man named Dr. Wilson. You can look it up online, but supposedly there's coffee enemas are pretty popular in helping heal your body and cleansing your blood. And there's research showing that actually putting coffee in your vaginal canal using like a sponge or a rag, that it allows the beneficial aspects of the coffee to enter right into your lymph system. And there's women saying that has healed their sexual trauma as well. So wow. I have yet to try this, but I just want to tell you about it so you can look it up as well.
Oh, thank you. Dr. Wilson, coffee.
Vaginal coffee insertion.
Okay. Oh my gosh, that's so interesting.
Yeah, a client just told me about this, and I'm like, I've never heard of this before. How cool.
Yeah, cool. Great. Okay, so you're a cheerleader on the side of a woman waiting and really taking time. Is there ever a point where you would say, okay, go and get it lasered? Like, I mean, there's some people that, I really don't know where I sit with this, because, you know, every woman has a choice to do whatever she wants with her body. And so I never want to tell people what to do with full stop, because I'm very aware that, you know, everybody has a right to do it. And, you know, but I also know that there's a lot of money being made from these procedures, and, you know, I don't know what the truth is anymore.
This is such a good question. So I don't ever tell a woman, no, you shouldn't get it lasered. If a woman comes to me and she is in a panic and I give her all the tools and information and she is still terrified and is like, I think I'm just going to go do it, I will support her, you know, her sovereignty. Like, it's her body. She can do whatever she wants. Then I just talk to her about, well, just be mindful of taking care of yourself afterwards. But it's a really fine line, because, you know, there are some women who are extremely terrified of it developing into cancer. And part of me feels like even just that fear, holding on to that fear, makes it happen even quicker. So I just leave it up to the discretion of the individual. If they in their body feel like that is the best option for them in the moment, then they can do that. And then they can use this information to make it so they never have to have another one.
I mean, you know, what was it about you? I mean, this is becoming long, so I won't keep you too much longer, but I'm curious, like, what was it about you? You're so young. Why, how come you trusted your body and you like,
that is such a good question. I don't know. I think about this too. I think it is my stubbornness. I don't know, in astrology, I'm a Taurus rising. And so I just kind of have this like bullheadedness about myself where I'm like, no, I don't want to be in pain. It's scared. Oh, I know what it was actually. I went online and I looked up photos of what the LEAP procedure was. And like, I read stories of afterwards and I scared myself. I literally scared the living God out of me. I was like, I am not doing this. Oh my God, no, without anesthesia? Are you kidding me? So
actually, that's interesting. The fear of having it was worse than the fear of not having it.
Right. No, it was just like, I mean, I'm a baby even getting like my blood drawn. So I was like, I'm not doing that. No.
It's a pretty brutal procedure. You know, like, I remember that procedure, like, it did not feel like a Western medicine practice, you know, like, it felt really barbaric, and the smell of burning flesh. Like, I know, it's horrible. It's horrible. I wish I could take back. I wish I knew what I knew now. And I reckon if it was me now, I'd just be like, hold, just don't go, you know, like, doing everything. Because what happened was, for me, was when my life got good and I got happy, everything started to clear up. I mean, I know HPV came back again for me, but it cleared up. And it was, I was happy, you know, like, doing what I loved in the world. And I remember thinking, walking down the street one day saying, well, I would be really surprised if my cells are abnormal now, because I was just like, and I do think, like, you know, that's something, you know, how emotionally happy are you? What are you doing that's lighting you up? You know, like, where is your energy being spent, where you're full of resentment or full of, like, you know, the yes when you mean no, you know, and you're doing it in life, not just sex, you know, the yes. No, compromising yourself, draining your energy, matters.
It does. I completely agree with you 100%.
Our systems will have ways of telling us, you know, and especially this place in a woman's body, the place of her creativity and her sexuality. So Danelle, thank you so much for coming and chatting with us. And I'm glad to know that you're around, and I would encourage anybody who is sitting on this edge and is dealing with the scary decisions here, to have an appointment with Danelle and look at your options, because I'm sure that there is a lot more depth to go into in terms of healing and herbs and all of that stuff. So Danelle, how can people find you?
Well, my website is www.cervicalwellness.com, and I actually have a 52-page guidebook called The Cervix, Deepen Your Relationship, How to Self-Heal HPV and Cervical Dysplasia. It's a guidebook that I wrote last year, and I was originally selling it, but I'm in the process of editing it and making it bigger and better. So now I'm just giving out this original one for free. So if you go to my website and enter in your email address, you can just have that resource straight into your inbox. And I'm also on Instagram at Cervical Wellness. This is a new page for me, and I really love interacting with everybody on Instagram. I just love that.
Yeah, it's fun, isn't it?
It's so amazing. That's how we found each other.
Yeah, we did. Thank you so much, and let's keep in touch.
Okay, please. Thank you. And I'll send people to you too.
Yay.